Kazashi. And I'll just give you a couple of my comments about it. I told people I would review it. Okay, now the first, I've been driving a minivan for so long because I have to for work. Okay, and then you kind of get used to that. So the first thing that we went out for dinner on Saturday, Alexis and I. We went over to the movies in the Kazashi, and then we went out for dinner. They're not a sponsor, so I won't say where. And I come out, and I'm looking for my minivan. And then she's like, what are you doing? And I'm walking to somebody else's minivan that looks similar. She's like, what are you doing? We're right here. So I'm looking at the minivan, and then I look at the Kazashi, and then I realize exactly the contrast of, staid minivan for me personally, and the stylishness of this car. In other words, I'm not a big fan of small to mid-sized cars because I like some bulk around. I like to be carrying. But I realize that in the back it swoops up a little bit. It kind of has a kind of a sporty back end to it. And then in the front, I hadn't really looked at it. It was kind of in the twilight at sunset, and it has the I guess sporty headlight, whole grill, all of that situation. So I got a feeling that it is a very sleek car, and that it would age well. In other words, it would keep some of that grace and style as it went along, which is always a concern for me. Everybody has a new car, looks great. What's it going to look like in 2.5 years? Is it still going to look sporty? And I got the feeling that it would.
Suzuki tries to stay with the car lines for 4 to 5 years, so the car doesn't get dated so fast. I mean, if you change every 2 years, your car's going to look aged quickly. They'll stay with the same styling. They may change the ground effects, give it a different wheel, maybe add a different feature, change the interior trim. But if you notice BMW and Mercedes-Benz, they keep the same lines. It makes the car stay up to date. So a customer can have a 4 or 5 year old car and still look like they've got a new car. And the styling of this car, it stands out. You see one going down the road, you go, wow, what is that car? I got to find out. Of course, the name is kind of unique. People are behind me a lot of times, and they're looking in the rearview mirror, and they're in front, and I'm in the rearview mirror looking at them, and they're trying to make out the name. It is unique. Kazashi, it's different. It is Suzuki. It is Japanese, but you have to come down and take a look at one, and you'll see.
Now, so far I've reviewed it with Gary. The design itself on the outside, I liked it. I'm not partial to the smaller to mid-sized cars, so I can't give it an A+. I'll give it like an A- for me, just for the size. Okay,
well, but I greatly appreciate that.
Yeah, I mean that's a pretty good. Now we get inside, and the interior is a solid. I mean, when you sit down, you can get a feel for something if it's well made and it's structurally sound and so forth. And I certainly got that from the interior on the inside. I put a couple people in the back, including my kid, and they had plenty of room. So the interior, even though it's a small to mid-sized car, the interior was excellent. It was perfect. That to me was an A+ for a smaller car. Now you get inside, and I'm talking about the pickup, and once again, I don't know what I have to go against but other than driving my minivan like almost 90% of the time when I drive, but it had excellent pickup. The brake was real tight. Now, I'm sure that's how it's designed. I wasn't used to that, but going up and coming up to stoplights, my wife and kids were like, what are you doing, dude? I mean, and I had a little trouble getting used to that. In terms of all of the controls, okay, I have not had a new car in, say, 5 years, okay? I couldn't believe you really kind of have to sit down and you have to get used to the touchscreen. Now, I'm sure that guys who haven't had new cars in a long time, I'm not the first one that would have had a little bit of trouble understanding what is what works and what doesn't and so forth. I never really took the time to get out the manual or go through all the things, but there's a ton of options, a ton of radio options, a ton of zone cooling options and so forth. It's an incredibly high-tech car. Correct?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. You drove the high-end one. It's the SLS all-wheel drive with Navi system and backup camera. The radio system is quite technical on the vehicle. It takes a little bit of time to get used to. They make one step below that doesn't have quite the frill of the radio. It's a little more user friendly. But you do get the get the tech guys, and they like all those little frills that radio system has. USB ports. You can rate iPods. You can play it. Your phone system. Plug it into it. It's built right in. The backup camera is built into there with the nav system. So there's quite a bit going on in that radio system.
Okay, I want to talk about the backup camera. We have a camera on us right now that is not as clear as it. I don't know if it's an HD camera, but it's you can see, you can read stuff.
Right.
If you can read backwards,
right.
Through your backup
it's a 7-inch
camera.
screen on there, so it gives you a pretty good view. And the car's got a higher back end line on it, the trunk line. So having that backup camera makes it a lot better in parking lots.
What do you mean by and I noticed that pulling out of my driveway where I got a tree right to the side. And of course, they've got an even minivan view all the way across. There's no swoop up in the back.
Right.
This swoops up like a sports car, and actually has a little swoop up of the trunk right at the end to give it a little style. So you almost have to have that camera because you really can't see into that blind spot when you're backing up.